It was springtime in the year 589, and whether you were peasant, merchant, or samurai in the Emerald Empire, there was doubtless a sense of happy anticipation in the air. It wasn't that the retired Emperor Hantei XV had been especially bad as a ruler, he'd simply been average. But now his son sat the Chrysanthemum throne. An emperor who now not only possessed the vigor of youth, but also a sharp mind, a will of steel, and a plan to leave his mark upon the empire. Hopes were high as the reign of Hantei XVI began, and all the empire waited with bated breath to see what their new ruler would do. His father and mother having retired from public life, and his younger siblings having performed the ritual of abdication, the first thing the new emperor did was to send summonses throughout the empire, calling to his service those friends and allies that he had forged for himself as a young prince during his tour of the land that was now his to rule. For the reign of Hantei XVI was defined not simply by his own personality, but also by those of his inner circle. Most of these received only brief introductions in the previous video. Now the time has come to flesh them out. Mia Karuo we are already somewhat familiar with. Arguably the first member of the Emperor's inner circle, Karuo was very much a creature of the imperial court. He was also by far the most unscrupulous of the new Emperor's inner circle, being both thoroughly corrupt and utterly hedonistic. He'd actually accompanied Hantei XVI on his tour of the empire when he was still the crown prince, and had partaken of so many extravagant feasts that he'd arranged in the heir's honor that upon their return to the imperial capital, Karuo had gained 70 pounds of weight. Evidently, though, the new emperor appreciated Karuo's abilities as an organizer, because he appointed him imperial advisor shortly after ascending to the throne. An astute observer might have thought that such a choice boded ill for the empire, given that such an important post was now occupied by someone so corrupt and dissolute. But if anyone in the court was that astute at the time, they kept their opinions to themselves. In stark contrast to the decadent Karuo was Hida Tsuneo, the Stone Crab, a formidable and iron-willed warrior who had pledged eternal service to Hantei XVI after the latter had saved his life when they were young men. If soft hedonism was Karuo's defining characteristic, Tsuneo was defined by rigid stoicism and self-control. He never let his feelings show. He never bent in the face of adversity. And, for better and for worse, he would never hesitate to do what his emperor commanded of him. Where the Stone Crab was grim and forbidding, Suzume Kirako was charming and friendly. The daughter of the Sparrow Clan champion, Kirako was described as charming, intelligent, lovely, and trusting, with a gift for making friends. And in many ways, the fact that Hantei XVI cultivated her demonstrates both his intelligence and his deviousness. If committing fratricide against his older brother when he was young to get the throne wasn't already a tip-off, Hantei XVI was not a good person. But he was very good at hiding this fact, and Kirako was but one of many who saw only the mask and not what lay beneath. Upon assuming the throne, Hantei XVI invited Kirako to gauge the feelings of the commoners and the poor samurai of the empire so that he might know what they thought of him and his rule. To the kind and trusting Kirako, this was proof that Hantei XVI was a kind and compassionate ruler, who cared about his people and would be responsive to their needs. This daughter of the Sparrow Clan would carry out her duties faithfully. She did indeed travel across the empire, ascertaining the feelings and sentiments of the locals, and often helping wherever she could. She was essentially the face of imperial charity. And because she was a genuinely kind and thoughtful person, her conduct only served to reflect well upon the new emperor whom she represented. The fact that she was often away from the capital meant that Kirako almost never saw the dark side of Hantei XVI. Next, Akodo Tsurikan. Of the inner circle, there is the least information regarding him, save that he was the son of a prominent Lion Clan daimyo and general, and evidently had a lot of influence within his clan, which would be especially important given a specific decision Hantei XVI would make later in his reign, but that's getting ahead of myself. Next, Daidoji Tojo. Where Tsuneyo's value lay in his loyalty and prowess as a warrior, and Kiriko, Karuo, and Tsurikan were valuable for their political utility, Tojo's value to the new emperor was economic. After the Crane-Crab War resulted in the defection of the Yasuki family to the Crab Clan, the Crane realized that maybe it wasn't a good idea to have alienated the best merchants in the empire, especially if they wanted to remain the wealthiest great clan. And so the Daidoji, ever the pragmatists of the Crane, had stepped in to fill the void, establishing the Daidoji Trading Council, a sort of quasi-governing body whose purpose was to maintain good relations and strong ties to the various mercantile interests across the empire. After all, what Rokugani merchant wouldn't want to claim the patronage of the Crane clan, one of the most respectable clans in the empire, and certainly the wealthiest and most refined? Apparently, membership on the Daidoji Trading Council was hereditary, and Tojo happened to be the son of a council member. Tojo would prove himself a man possessed of good business acumen and a degree of political cunning. Unfortunately, his great weakness would be a tendency to hold grudges. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. Last but not least of the new emperor's inner circle was Shosuro Tsiya, courtier and daughter of the sensei of the Shosuro acting school, where Tsurikan, Karuo, and Tojo had joined Hantei XVI's side out of self-interest, and Kiriko out of a naive optimism and misreading of the new emperor. Tsiya's loyalty to Hantei XVI stemmed from the same source as that of Tsuneyo: loyalty and devotion. But Tsuneyo's loyalty had been rooted in gratitude to the man who had saved his life when they were both young. Tsiya's loyalty stemmed from her own insecurity. Despite being brilliant and beautiful, it seemed that Shosuro Tsiya lacked confidence in herself. It had been then Prince Hantei Okuchiyo who had believed in her when they were both young. Whether this was sincere on his part or manipulation as it had been with Kiriko is never said. But truth or falsehood, Tsiya had believed the Hantei's words, and her devotion to him as a result was certainly equal to that of the stone crab. Thus, when he called her to his side as part of the inner circle, she not only became his head of intelligence with her insight into the Scorpion spy network, she also became his secret lover. With his close and loyal advisors now assembled, Hantei XVI began setting in motion his plans for the empire. And at first, they were good things. The first order of business was the overhaul of the road network across the Emerald Empire to facilitate the movement of armies and the flow of trade, thus increasing both security and prosperity for all of Rokugan. And it seemed that the heavens approved, for in the autumn of the following year, 590, the empire experienced the best harvest ever known in decades. So much food was produced that by the end of it, and thanks to the transportation improvements made by renovating the roads, every clan in the empire had a surplus, a rare thing in Rokugan. This bounteous event was dubbed the Golden Harvest, and all, peasant and samurai alike, praised the emperor whose wisdom they believed was responsible for it, dubbing Hantei XVI the Golden Chrysanthemum. The future not only seemed bright, it was downright resplendent. But even the glitter of gold casts shadows, and they are there to see for those who are willing to look for them. In many ways, Hantei XVI would have been rightly remembered as a good emperor, except for one all-consuming flaw: paranoia. The whole reason for his creation of the inner circle was because he wanted to make sure that he would rule only through those who were loyal to him personally, not to their clans or to the empire. His will was all that mattered, and thus loyalty to him trumped everything else. And it seemed that to the new emperor there were many in the imperial court whose loyalty was doubtful at best. And so, in the winter of 590, while everyone else settled in to enjoy the fruits of the golden harvest, Hantei XVI, by forced retirement or even by assassination, removed many powerful samurai who were of a more traditionalist bent, those whom he was not certain would follow his lead rather than their own inclinations. He thus made sure that power in the capital would be concentrated in himself and those whom he trusted to obey his orders without question. The new emperor's mistrust not only extended to the court, but also to the empire's armed forces. Back in the reign of Emperor Genji, the imperial legions had been created for the express purpose of giving the imperial family an army of its own to counterbalance the military might of the great clans. But for the new emperor, even this was not enough. In 591, one of the few of the old guard samurai who still remained in his court was Doji Rin, Crane Clan champion and Emerald champion. Thus a man far too prominent to be simply eliminated or forced into retirement. Rin had served the retired emperor Hantei XV, and in the reign of a mediocre emperor and mediocre courtiers, he had become one of the greatest political minds in the empire, and, more to the point, had been one of those who had angled to increase the power of his own clan at the expense of the imperial family. However, with a vigorous and highly intelligent emperor on the throne, Rin knew that such angling was no longer possible. But even if he couldn't extend the power of the Crane clan, he could enhance its prestige. And so, in 591, he proposed to the new emperor the idea of creating a new imperial legion. The emperor had renovated the roads to facilitate trade. The task of this new legion would be to patrol the roads and ensure the safety of any merchant caravans from bandits. He then proposed that his younger brother Doji Hekiro be placed in command. The Emerald Champion figured that with his brother in charge of this new legion, it could be used for Rin's actual purpose, to protect the particular economic interests of the Crane. The fact that the creation of this new legion was his idea would also redound to his prestige and that of the Crane. Unfortunately for Doji Rin, Hantei XVI saw this suggestion as an attempt to create a legion beyond his own control, and that could be turned against him. From that day forward, as far as the new emperor was concerned, the Emerald Champion was a threat that needed to be crushed. But since he couldn't simply eliminate someone as prominent as the champion of a great clan, the emperor settled for the next best thing: to humiliate Doji Rin and bring about his ruin. Hantei XVI did indeed create a new imperial legion as the Emerald Champion had suggested. But instead of Doji Hekiro, he placed in command his loyal but fat and indolent imperial advisor Miya Karuo. In order to further emphasize that this was his legion, the emperor also christened this new unit the Golden Legion, after the title bestowed upon him by the happy people of the empire. But this deliberate slight to the Emerald Champion was only the beginning. At the emperor's command, Shosuro Tsuya, his secret lover, began a whispering campaign against Doji Rin, slowly but surely eroding the Emerald Champion's standing in the court, while also making it clear that he was no longer in the emperor's good graces. Then, to really twist the knife, the emperor deliberately seduced Doji Rin's only child, Doji Hime, and made her his concubine. Not his wife, his concubine. For a proud man like the Crane Clan champion, this was too much, and by the end of the winter court of 591, Doji Rin retired to a monastery. Leadership of the Crane Clan passed to his younger brother Hekiro. It's never mentioned who succeeded him in the office of Emerald Champion. And so the first great victim of Hantei XVI had fallen, brought low by the paranoia of his own sovereign. The paranoia that would increasingly define his reign. Only 2 years into that reign, 1 year following the Golden Harvest, and already the gilding of the Golden Chrysanthemum was beginning to flake away. It is the Sengoku Jidai. Besieged and surrounded by his enemies, a lord pays a group of men to see his only child to safety. But do they have the skill to ensure her safety? And can they even be trusted? For this is an age of honor and treachery, of blood and valor, of gold and steel. Now available at Amazon, Smashwords, and at StudioBrainstorm.net. Links in the description.